Let me welcome. Yeah, no, you want to come back to you? Will you open, Mr. Bucheri? All right, Mr. Bucheri, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Ricky Bucheri is senior financial planner at Nedbank, and I appreciate your time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me onto the air. I appreciate it.
So explain to us in very, very simple terms, very briefly, of course, what the two-pot system actually means.
Oh, yeah, you said in your opening remarks, you're not sure if it's a two-pot or three-pot system.
Yeah.
It actually is a three-pot system because you do have your existing retirement savings. So that will be ring-fenced, and that will become your vested retirement savings. Then you're going to have a retirement pot, and you're going to have a savings pot. So any contributions going forward after the 1st of March next year, 1/3 of that contribution will go into the savings pot, and the other 2/3 will go into the retirement pot. And that retirement pot, you cannot touch it, not at all. That is going to be for the day you retire. But in the savings pot, you'll be allowed to draw on an annual basis between 2,000 Rand and 25,000 Rand maximum, depending on the amount that's in the pot. Per annum, provided you've got enough money in there. Now, people think that they're going to draw 25,000 Rand every year. It doesn't always work like that. It depends on how much you've actually saved in your savings pot. If you had enough to actually draw the 25,000.
All right. So let me quickly see if I understand you. There are two pots as of the 1st of March next year, but as of now, actually there are three. Because we have the pot, and I love this whole sort of imagery. We have the one pot where your current funds are, right, that you can access. You can, in fact, access 100% thereof, minus, of course, whatever taxes you must pay, only up to the 1st of April next year. That's the first pot. The second pot is what goes into your retirement, and the second pot is what goes into your savings. You, as of the 1st of March next year, can only access, before retirement, what is in your savings pot to a capped maximum of 25,000 Rand. Is that what I'm understanding from you, Ricky?
To understanding is, I just left out the 10%. You can only access 10% of that pot. Minimum of 2,000 Rand, up the savings, up to 25,000 Rand of that pot. But right now, you've only got one pot. On the 1st of March next year, you will then have three pots.
So who came up with the pots? Who came up with these pots?
I have no idea. That's exactly how that should come up in legislation as well. That's open for comment.
All right. What does this mean for the fiscal fitness of this country? I mean, a lot of people constantly speak of we are not a very good savings country, right? What does this mean for the general fitness of our coffers as a country?
So my view is, I think it's a very good bit of legislation that's coming in, because a lot of people leave their companies, withdraw their full retirement fund, whether it's 100,000 or R1 million. They take the whole lot with a view to invest in it, and they never do. People in so much debt, they have to go towards the debt. At least now, there'll be forced retirement savings. They can only access a very small portion of their retirement savings, especially the young people that have got still many years to retirement. They're going to build up a big pot or a big savings. Let's not use the word pot. The older people, so your 50, 55s, they really have got a tough task ahead of them, because they've accessed their retirement savings over all the years that they've been working.
Yeah.
And they've only got 5 or 10 years to retirement. What are they going to actually benefit out of this? So the small cash flow they're going to have every year. I think they're going to be left behind, definitely. But the young people will definitely be in a much better position.
Are we likely then to see people resign from their jobs precisely to have access to the full pot, as it were, at this stage?
I have a feeling that could start happening, but this happened once before, 2 or 3 years ago, where all the nurses were told nonsense about the retirement funds, and they all started leaving their employment because they wanted to get the retirement funds out before the government took everything, which was a load of nonsense and never happened. And when the people tried to get back into employment again, there was no employment. And I think the employment situation is even worse now. Hopefully, people will think a lot clearer this time.
Ricky Bucheri, I'm going to continue this conversation with Dr. Frank Magwegwe, but thank you very much for the clarity that you've given about the 2, 3, 4 pot system, and appreciate your time, sir.
Pleasure.
Ricky Bucheri is a senior financial planner at Nedbank. I'm going to continue this conversation with Dr. Frank Magwegwe straight after them.
Financial Matters.
Dr. Frank, once again, thank you very much for joining us. The one question that still is on the back of my mind is precisely around that component of our population, the 50-year-olds up. That's you and me.
That's us. Yes, bro.
And this two-pot system, that it might not necessarily benefit those of us in that age bracket. Yeah. And one of my questions is, are we not going to see a mass resignation of those people? These are people with a certain level of experience in whatever they do. They are a critical part of the economy. But because of the introduction of this two-pot system come the 1st of March next year, may not necessarily have, as they now do, the full complement of their pensions, right? Are we not likely to see people resign to be able to, and prior to the 1st of April?
I think there's always an element of that. But like Ricky said, the economic environment is quite challenging at the moment. So unless, you're able to find other work, I think people will think twice. That's firstly. I think also the other factor might be, given you 50 plus, you've accumulated quite a bit. I think just thinking about the tax consequences, of that withdrawal might deter, people from doing that. And that's exactly what the Reserve Bank, National Treasury is trying to do, to say, we're giving you tax breaks to contribute to retirement savings. You must be patient. Get them when you actually retire. Because many people, there's a very, very scary statistic, perhaps. It comes out in many, many different types of studies that we see here in the country. But it really points to less than 10% of working South Africans enjoy the same living standards as they did when they were working once they retire. In other words, they just don't have enough. And this income that's gone at retirement, it's a big gap in their finances. So the National Treasury is trying to help with that. And I agree with Ricky that in the long term, the young people is going to be a massive benefit for them.
Yeah.
Because they are forced.
Yeah.
I changed jobs several times when I was younger, and I just cashed my pension as well. Whereas it's not going to be possible. So you're going to be forced to say, okay, change your jobs. You want your pension, you can only get 1/3.
Give me a call. Especially that cohort of South Africans who are in the ages between 50 and perhaps retirement age.
Yeah.
What do you think about this law? The fact that up until the 1st of April next year, you can access, of course, subject to all of the taxes that are connected to that, which may, in fact, be a deterrent for you to do what I'm asking about right now. But are you likely to say, listen, I am afraid that I won't have full access to my pension after that date, and I need that money. I want to buy the farm. I want to start my B&B. I want to start my business so that I'm able to look after myself when I can't no longer work, right? So that I'm part of that 10% that Dr. Frank Magwegwe is talking about? Or are you thinking, listen, in order for me to be part of the 10% that is able to maintain their lifestyle after retirement, I should leave my money in that pension fund? So give me a call. I'd like to hear your thoughts around that on 011-883-0702. Let's speak to Louise in Johannesburg. Good evening to you, Louise.
Good evening, Aubrey and Dr.
Hi, Louise.
Magwegwe.
You were fast off the starting line there.
Dr. Frank,
Yes.
my question is this. In the 2023 budget speech, the tax-free amount that can be taken at retirement or when taking a voluntary severance package was increased from 500,000 to 550,000. Now, I've already taken the 500,000, so I've got, in theory, still 50,000 due to me tax-free. After 1 April 2023, from which pot will this extra 50,000 be available? Would it be available from the vested pot, the savings pot, or the retirement pot?
Excellent question, Louise. Dr. Frank?
Yeah, so in the new system, so that's kicking in 1 March 2024. So you have all the previous contributions that you were making, like currently up to that point. You cannot touch that, right? And then the new system kicks in. It says, to just use a simple example, if you contribute 100, 666 goes into your retirement pot, 333, which is 1/3, goes into your savings pot. And you can only get money from the savings pot. So once the law kicks in, your current savings, it gets locked up. You have no access to that. And you can only access the new contribution that you'll be making. So if you do, from what I'm understanding, this 50,000, it will be available to you between now and essentially end of February next year. And then the new regime kicks in and you can't access from that.
Let's take a call from Tabang in Pretoria. Good evening to you, Tabang.
Yes, Bra Aubrey and Dr.
Hi, Tabang. Yebo.
Yeah, go for it, Tabang.
I've got a question, but before I ask my question, I want to say that for me personally, without a doubt, I'm going to resign probably end of Feb or during the month of Feb.
Tell us more.
I have a serious problem with this government taking a blanket approach. You know, they should have gone for a targeted approach to see who are these employees who appear not to be good with their monies, and not club everyone, even people who are good with their own monies, into the one basket. But ultimately, here's my question, because during the 2-year lockdown, I was actually having 4 jobs, my main one and 3.
Yeah.
And during that time, I saved a whole lot of money. But now, I've decided that whilst this thing is going to take place, I'm actually currently right now looking for another job. So that by the time I resign knowing that I'm actually moving to another company. Now, my question is, let's say I resign, let's say in March, and it means now I'm affected by this 2 pot. What's going to happen? Because now my previous money is going to still be locked.
Yes.
And I'm joining another company. Now, what happens in that situation?
So very good question. So what has always happened in our country is that when you resign, you decide to preserve, if you use the language, or to keep your money in the retirement system, right? That is the one option you have. The other option was, I want to take my money and do whatever I want. It's my money. I'm happy to pay the tax, right? So the moment we hit 1 March 2024, if you change jobs 1 March 2024, the law that is kicking in, it's saying, wait a minute, you can no longer say to your employer, I want 100% of my accumulated savings, right? It's now saying you can only access 1/3 of your monies that you've been contributing to try to keep more money in the system. So it's got an impact essentially on what you can access when you change jobs. Before you could access 100% as cash, now they are limiting that to say, we see people struggle in retirement because they keep on changing jobs and cashing their pension.
Doesn't Tabang have a bit of a point there about the blanket application of this new law, regardless of the ability of people's frugality and discipline as far as money is concerned? It's understandable that we want to have some sort of a larger savings pot for the country so that we have reserves or whatever the big reasons are. But this is my money.
Yeah.
I want to access it as and when I want. I was having a conversation yesterday with some tax consultants, and they were talking about the issue of tax residency versus non-tax residency versus citizenship versus non-citizenship, and the ability to move money in and out of the country and all sorts of different things. And it appears that, again, next year, new laws are going to kick in that are going to allow people, or that are not going to allow people to move money as freely as it is at the moment. So my question is, what is the agenda here? What's going on? But also, is there not a point to what Tabang is saying that, look, I worked for this money. It's my money. I worked 4 jobs over the COVID period. Why is it that I'm now being subjected to a law that seeks to help those that can't look after themselves, don't have discipline, but I'm part of that? Explain that.
I think it's difficult to assess at an individual case, individual by individual, right? So it's very difficult for the government to say, this person is able. I'm almost picturing some sort of quiz or assessment that you do, and it says, okay, you seem to be okay with your money, this rule applies to you. You seem not to be. So it's quite difficult to do given the millions of working people. That's one reason. The second reason is that when we contribute towards retirement savings, we benefit because there's a tax break or a benefit from a tax perspective. So the government says, I'm incentivizing you to save. When you get your income, I don't tax you until at retirement. You contribute to retirement savings, before I deduct tax. That's the second. The third, the government say, no, if people don't have enough, they're going to rely on me.
Sure.
It's a problem. I want to make sure that those who were fortunate enough to have jobs, they are well prepared for retirement. Then I've got a small base of people that I then give the state old age grant. So those are some of the reasons. And it's not just an SA issue. It's many governments that grapple with that, and they put these rules, to basically say, we still need to make sure that in old age we're providing medical services, and we can't have people who are
Do you
working.
think that it is an alignment? It's sort of an alignment of all of these financial laws. Again, I'm referring to the conversation I had yesterday with tax consultants who say, hey, listen, next year, guys, you're not going to be able to take out more than whatever. I think it was R1 million, or and then there's a whole application process that you need to go through with the revenue services if you want to take out more money. There is, all sorts of rules around the blanket of your income that the government can take, even though you are non-resident in South Africa and working elsewhere. There seems to be a whole set of laws that are in place or coming into place to do what exactly?
It's so interesting you say that, Bra Obs, because I think one of the things it tells us is that, and that's Tabang's point, right? I think under normal circumstances, people wouldn't be kind of suspicious and think of ulterior motives, given the way it's being packaged. It had a very good consultative process. It's still open until 15th of July, to comment on that. But you raise a very good point in that because there's a trust deficit, people are just saying, if you look at of NHI. Exactly.
Yeah.
People are saying NHI, but they don't have track record of using money wisely.
Yeah.
So why do they want to keep my money for longer? So I think that trust deficit is what plays into people's minds. Yeah. And you then get it, a bank says, well, I'm going to just get my money. I'm not prepared for that nonsense.
Yeah. Give me a call. I'd love to hear your thoughts, particularly if you're about 50 and above. LC Keto Queen says, is this going to affect the private sector as well, or only government departments? What if I resign from government to private sector, which may be using a different pension scheme from that of government, e.g. Provident Fund, or does this matter?
All funds. Remember, we had a long process of basically bringing closer the pension and the provident fund, and the retirement annuities, they are all pretty much the same thing now, although we call them different names that they've been called historically, but there's been this alignment, and so this affects all pension funds.
Private and public sector pension funds. Let's go back to the lines. Ngwako is in Limpopo. Hi, Ngwako.
Hey, bro, Aubrey, how are you?
I'm well, my brother. What is on your mind?
Mine is a very simple one. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening,
Doctor, as well.
Good evening, Ngwako.
I just wanted to find out, would you advise someone who is currently in the public sector, who's got a third of, which is an equivalent of maybe, let's say, 400 or 500K, to withdraw that and put it in the stock market? And they are maybe around 40, 45 years of age. Would you advise that?
Yeah, so it's difficult to, without a little bit more info about kind of your personal circumstances, your risk tolerance. But what I can say is that if you do that, what essentially you're saying is, instead of the companies appointed by the pension fund to invest and grow that money for you, you saying, I can do a better job myself. Right? Yes. That's basically what I get, and underlying that, I think I can do it. And it sounds like, if you're thinking like that, perhaps you've got some of the skill, but more importantly, maybe also a little bit of that sort of, risk tolerance. It sounds like you've got a risk tolerance of doing something like that. Because as you know, if you have a full-time job and they're trying to look after 500K, that's quite a bit of money to grow it. So it's quite a big risk, that you'd be taking. And usually when we're doing it ourselves, you saw COVID, you see Russia, Ukraine, share prices can fall. And individuals who are not experts at managing money, you often find yourself, you panic. And now you say, I've lost a lot of money, I want to get my money back. So just for those principles, I wouldn't recommend it, because you're not a full-time person whose job is managing money. You've got a job somewhere and you are taking on this risk that needs you to be updated to market. Which shares are you buying? Which one do you sell? If they're not doing well, it's a lot that you're assuming. It's quite risky.
Yeah, but what if I put it in the hands of someone who is an expert in that regard?
I think if you're saying, I'm not managing it myself, you think it carefully, you look at your situation, perhaps it's something that one could consider. But would you be exiting your employment? Because to get that...
Just to access the third of my entire, fund.
So you are talking from next year when the law kicks in?
Yes.
Okay. Did you hear what Ricky said at the beginning of the program? That's what a wonderful question. Sorry, I misunderstood you. So the law says you can't access 550. You access up to a maximum of 25,000. So it's 10%, right, of your current savings, up to a maximum of. So if you have 500, 10% is 550. It's more than 25. You can only get 25. Yes. And that's a common misunderstanding that is in the market at the moment. I think they need to do some work to help people understand. You are not going to get 1/3 of everything. 1/3 to a limit of 25,000.
But seeing that currently you can access 100%.
Yes.
Can one then access a third? And
right now you can get 100% right now.
But it's if you quit your job. So you quit your job, say, I want my money. You can, yes.
I've got to let you go. Right. Thanks very much for your call. Yeah, you see the considerations that start to emerge now, where people are starting to think. That's why I asked that question right in the beginning, to say, are we likely to see people resign from their jobs so that they can access that 100%? Yes, notwithstanding the fact that there is going to be tax and so forth. But I don't the trust deficit thing. And I'd rather get a private fund manager to look after that thing for me. I'll take my chances with the idea of getting another job after the 1st of April. So it's as you say, it's something that people need to be. Khashev asks a very interesting question on Twitter. Says, slightly off topic, but possibly quick answer. Is there some sort of international pension fund that uses a worldwide set of rules rather than that of the country, and applies wherever you may live by the time you retire. I wish you were listening to the conversation yesterday, Sasha, but go ahead.
No, there isn't. So retirement, for their country specific, with specific rules, because remember the history of them, right? It's got to do with the idea that I know at some point my workforce will retire, and I'm going to incentivize them to save for retirement. So there's a direct link between the tax codes of a country and the contribution towards retirement saving. So the US has their own way, SA has their UK, so it's country specific. So there's no kind of global pension fund with its own, it's country specific. Yeah.
Unless, of course, there is some sort of an agreement, a tax sort of agreement between two countries. So what I got to understand yesterday is that somebody can be tax resident in South Africa. Yeah. In other words, then South Africa is able to tax your income not only for the amount of money that you generate from within South Africa, but elsewhere in the globe. You can be taxed for all of your income elsewhere in the globe. But of course, that would need certain agreements between some of those countries and so forth. So I wonder whether we need to have another conversation as far as that is concerned. But let's speak to Nyaniso in the Western Cape. Hi, Nyaniso. How are you doing, Nyaniso?
Hello, Nyaniso. Lovely name, Nyaniso. I love your name.
Nyaniso is the truth, man. Now I'm confused. I'm confused now.
Yeah.
In local government, we don't belong to pension fund. Local government it consists of all the municipalities.
Yes.
We were told by our retirement fund that these pots can come and go. We will be able to access, doesn't matter when, all our 100% from 500 is non-taxable. 500,000, 100% we can withdraw. But now today, I hear today from the end of February. I just want to clarity on that.
End of March next year.
Yeah, next year. Does it also include local government, municipalities, retirement funds? Because they were here to make the presentation, and they told us, you must not worry.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be able to continue to access 100% of our money. Can be March, end of March next year. It's not going to apply to us. Now I'm confused now, Aubrey. Now with this a new explanation from the Nedbank financial advisor and Dr. Magwegwe, we at local government are becoming confused.
Thank you very much for your question, Nyaniso. Yeah.
So I know, for example, we are talking of Salga Provident Fund, So the fund that has kind of its own status is the Government Employees Fund. So when you say we were told, I'm just trying to understand the context of the presentation you're talking about. Are you saying we've lost him?
Yeah. We've lost him. But what was your question?
I was going to say, I wanted to understand the context, because remember what we are talking about is you have been contributing and you've got this pot, hence we're talking of the third pot, the one you are currently contributing to now. And then come next year, you've got these two pots that are split. So what I wanted to understand from him, the presentation that he's talking about, is it at retirement? Is it at resignation? Because when you retire, you have the 550 that he's talking. It's available to everyone at retirement, right? That is tax-free, and then kicks in the rule that says 1/3 must get you a pension, and the balance you can get in as cash. So I was just trying to clarify that, yeah.
The other thing, perhaps, that needs to be clarified is that, we've got different pension fund, retirement fund regimes and names. And part of what is happening here is that all of those are being realigned.
Provident, pension, correct. Even retirement annuity, yes.
So it sounds to me as though all of these are going to be subjected to the same law.
That's my understanding, other than a government employees pension fund, because that one is its own act. It's different. It's perhaps what we call a defined benefit fund. In other words, what you get out of a government employee, if you're a nurse, you're a teacher who belongs to that, you get your pension as a function of how long you've worked for the company. That old rule that says you've been here 33 years, there's your money. They do a calculation. That one is a different, because it's governed by its own act, yeah.
That's a very interesting story. Perhaps you need to come back with more information on that one.
Yes,
please,
I'm going to check
Dr.
the Salga, yes.
Let me speak to Nelson in Pretoria. Nelson, good evening to you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Nelson. What's on your mind, my brother?
Good evening, my brother. Now I'm more confused.
Yeesh, man.
Because I thought I understood this thing, and I agree with the previous guy that now there's a contradiction, right? Because as far as I knew, the only funds that will be affected by the new system will be the one that will be accumulated next year.
So the new funds, yes.
I was reading now on MoneyWeb, right? The heading is two-pot system. Will we be able to access money already accumulated in the current pot? Then underneath says, according to the current draft, the two-pot retirement system will not be applied retrospectively, whatever the word is.
Retrospectively, yeah.
Yes.
That is true, yeah.
And it goes to in the vested pot, right? The one which I'm more interested in, the money that is already accumulated up until next day. It says the vested pot can be fully withdrawn on a pre-retirement resignation from an employer and will be subject to the same tax table provided above, meaning that the new rules, the new system that is coming in, does not affect what is already accumulated from whichever time that one started working to until they apply the new system. That's what I'm saying. Now I'm confused because the guy from Nedbank, the financial planner, saying something totally different to say that regardless of what you have already accumulated so far, come next year, it will also apply to the same rules as the new two-pot system. So this thing says something totally different.
So let me see if I'm with you. Let me see if I'm with you.
Yeah.
You're saying that the money that you accumulate up until the 1st of April next year will not be subject to the two-point system, right?
Absolutely.
Is that the case or not? First of all, that is your question.
Yeah. As far as I knew, that was the case.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe when I had the financial, I thought maybe I read wrong.
Let's get clarity. Thanks. Very good question, Nelson. Yeah.
No, that is correct, Bra Ops. Remember, Ricky spoke of 3 pots.
Yeah.
So you're saying the 3 pot, you've got your current pot now, right? What you have accumulated, we lock it on 29 Feb, end of Feb. That is not affected by the new dispensation.
Yes.
Then you've got the 2 new pots that kick in, right? One is the savings, one is the retirement. So the new laws are the ones that are saying if you have 1,000 rand contribution, 2/3, say 666, goes into saving. 1/3 goes into the savings. 1/3 into the savings. 2/3 into the retirement. And that's the one that is the new rules around. If you change jobs, you can no longer get 100%.
So they don't take all of the money that you've accumulated in your working career up until the 31st of March. I don't know.
End of Feb next year.
End of Feb next year.
Yes.
They don't take all of that and then distribute it into the new 2 pots.
No.
So it is only as of whatever you put together or whatever you accumulate as of the 1st of March.
2 new pots kick in. Correct.
It means you don't have to resign. You see, if that's the case,
exactly, Nelson.
No need for us to resign suddenly so that we can cash up the money that we've accumulated so far. That's what I'm saying. There's a big contradiction from what the guy already said. I think we just need.
But in order for you to access that money that you've been putting together up until the end of February, if you want all of it, you still have to resign.
Get a new job. Change employer.
Yeah.
Yes. Correct. So we are saying
you don't need to resign now if you don't get another job from another employer, meaning that I can still continue to work wherever I work, continue to apply even in next year in May. I'll still be able to access that money.
The old pot. Yes, so the old pot you'll be able to. Yeah, that is right. The old pot. Right. The old pot you'll continue to have access on the old rules, if you can put it like that.
Okay.
The new rules are just affecting the new pots. Yeah. So maybe
I don't have to resign in order to access that 100% that is of the old regime.
Yes, 100%.
So I don't have to resign.
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
The new pot is the one.
Because that was my worry. That's why I asked the question earlier on to say, but are we not going to see an exodus of people over the age of 50 starting to resign because they want the
odd? No,
they don't have to resign.
They don't have to.
But perhaps, I think also to be on the safe side, what we can do is also maybe call the National Treasury, because let us just be certain, because there are so many conflicting statements out there, so that we know once and for all.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
But your point is correct on the ring fencing of the old ones. You are right. That's the original pot. Then you've got pot 2, pot 3. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Nelson, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And then Ntabi Singh is an Alex. Good evening to you, Ntabi Singh.
Good evening, Aubrey and Dr. Frank.
Good evening to you, Ntabi.
Thank you. I wanted to make a contribution and basically maybe to just make a plea to people who are feeling very uncertain around resigning. Yeah. I will definitely discourage people from resigning, because research has shown, and I think maybe I'm hoping Dr. Frank can back me up here, that most people that resign, for the most part, they take the money. It's number one, taxed.
Yes.
A large portion is taxed, and then most people pay their debts and they fall back into the same trap that they would have fallen back again. And number two, most people never make that money back.
Yeah.
And I think that's you will never make that money back. And there was research shown by Sanlam that the person who's about to live to 150 is alive today.
Yes.
So there's a high risk that you take that money and you will squander it. The 90% probability that you will squander that money, and you will definitely live long, and you might not be able to get into the job market, and you end up being in the same position where you are depending on the state. So that's just something for people to be mindful of.
Wise words.
Yes, and one thing to also remember is that this, to a certain extent, it is an investment, but it's almost like an insurance, but a grudge purchase. It's money that you sort of have been used to not having.
Yeah.
And once you really get into the habit that this is money for my long-term goal, when I'm 60, 70, when I've retired, and we don't know, even with us, I mean, you look at France, the retirement age has been increased because why? They don't have enough pots. They don't have enough savings, because I think for them, they're still using a defined pension scheme.
Correct.
You know, where yes. And then we, on our end, we have a defined provident fund. But so we definitely rely on a lot as to what happens in the markets. So you really don't want to, there's so much risk in taking your money out and withdrawing it. And I think for me, the biggest risk is that living long, and maybe also your funds could have underperformed. You don't know how the asset allocation was on, in terms of like how it was invested. So I would really say, just keep in mind that don't get distracted by the noise, the short-term noise, because when you're 60, 70, you'll be crying.
Yeah.
If you actually
wise words.
Especially if you are 50 onwards, you will definitely have tears.
Yeah.
Ntabi Singh, very sobering
well-spoken.
call. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Dr. Frank, as we close,
100%.
And, if you could give us that prescription.
I think it's really one that says, given the topic, perhaps, to just say every working person has access to their employee benefit statement. That just kind of gives you a sense, are you on track to have enough for retirement? Research at GIBS, research at Nedbank tells us people hardly look at that. So it's an invitation, just given the number of calls that we had today, that retirement it's quite topical to get them to look into their employee benefit statement.
How do we get in touch with you, Dr. Frank?
Just go frankmagwegwe.com and click that Talk to Frank button.
Wonderful stuff. Dr. Frank, we talk next week.
Awesome.
Much appreciated this week. And, of course, thank Ricky Bucheri for joining us this evening.